What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Creative Rise podcast. So glad you are here today as we talk about a topic that can feel difficult for some people in actually navigating. It can be a blow to your self-esteem, to your pride. We're going to talk about an example of stuff that happens to us all the time, and it should be happening to you all the time if you are actively trying to grow your business by pitching, by putting yourself out there, by looking for opportunities, pitching opportunities. So quickly before we do, though, wanted to shout out a couple wins. There's been some awesome wins in the past week and a bit inside of the Creative Rise community, and we're sharing these because we want to encourage you on what's possible for you and your business if you just continue to do the things you know you got to do, focused on the business. Your business will grow when you focus on the business. So first things first, Haley Zumkeller. We love Haley. She is a wedding filmmaker and photographer from the Northwest. She is from Canada, Vancouver Island specifically, and she just posted a new win inside of our community. That is awesome. It reads this. It says, booked my largest wedding packages to date, $14,400 plus tax. So that's not including tax, for 8 hours of photo and 6 hours of video. One of my very few five-figure weddings I've booked, plus my first team of 3 weddings. So
that's amazing.
This is actually, there's a couple things that stick out here. This happened right after we all had a wedding conversation, which is really cool, about how to like better wedding packages, wedding pricing, just strategy on all that. And then we also, with her on the call, talked about the 3-man wedding and like how to tackle that a little bit. This is so cool. So shout out to Haley. She then said, hey, this is what helped me on this deal. They found me from a free wedding vendor list I ran. They found her because she was giving value, showing her whole community what the best vendors on Vancouver Island was, which was a great use of her time because it's already made her $14,400. From that, they were super overwhelmed trying to find vendors and stumbled across my wedding vendor list. Then they realized they liked my style. So that was really cool to see a return on that. So shout out to Haley. So proud of you, Haley. You are awesome at building things, great at building your business. And we just want to celebrate you on today's episode, which is awesome. So lots of wins happening there. So if you don't feel like tons of wins are happening in your business, borrow some of the hype off of Haley's business right now. Borrow it and take that in momentum and just throw it into your business and into action this week. But so this episode is going to be fun because we want to talk to you about something. Again, I said it was a little bit touchy, but before we do, I didn't even tell you we're going to do this. Why don't we just do a little reintroduction of who you and I are?
Yeah, let's do it.
As this episode is a story specifically about you. Why don't you go first? Just for people that are new to the podcast, newer to the show, that maybe don't know as much about our story.
Yes. Okay. So I'm Christy, the other 50% of Creative Rise. Joey and I are married. So I was a wedding photographer for about 8 years. Got into it after college, kind of stumbled into it, and then realized, oh, this is actually a ton of fun. It kind of kicked off, was a destination wedding photographer for, 8 years. And while I was doing that, I started picking up brands along the way. I started shooting for brands like Anthropologie, like the wedding line, stuff that was kind of associated with my wedding niche. But then I also started shooting for just straight up commercial product brands. And it was always really fun to just do on the side. And as I ran weddings, and then once I decided, you know what, my body can't take being gone every weekend and being gone shooting all these weddings. I think I might need to shift out of this kind of fully, and ended up diving full into brand photography space and kicked that off. And now that's like the main thing I do is commercial brand photography. It's so much fun. So that's what I do.
Yeah. And this is another question that you're not prepared for, but what do you feel like is your what's your sweet spot? What's the thing you do the most for companies? Like package wise? Just so people have got an even cooler look into what's your sweet spot? Because I feel like you've got a sweet spot.
Yeah, so I feel like my sweet spot is designing the campaign and shooting it. So not just being the show up photographer at a studio session or whatever, but actually designing a campaign that really is tailored to where they're trying to take their brand, not only visually, but also just, overall, what products do they want to showcase? What's the vibe? All that kind of stuff. So I design campaigns and shoot them, which is really fun. And a typical thing like that would be like a 30 image count, 4 reels, something like that. And
couple locations.
Couple models. I gather all the models, gather all of the vision, work with the company on that.
You produce everything. It's like a one-stop shop. Yeah.
I did if you're interested in something like that, I did an entire podcast on basically how exactly I execute high-end brand campaigns like that. If you want to listen to it, I think it's in the 170s somewhere. If you want to listen to it, I've got it all listed out there, which is super fun.
So Christy's phenomenal what she does. And those deals, it's shit producing, designing and developing campaigns and also executing on them on the creative side. That's typically where you get into 5-figure and higher 5-figure deals. If you are someone who's going, how would I ever make over $10,000 on a single brand deal? Well, it's doing things like Christy just said. So great job. This is a lot of the stuff you get on the podcast is from the life and learnings of Christy in that world. And then me over here on this side. My name is Joey Spears. I'm originally from Canada. I now live in Northern California with my wife. We met at the LAX airport. Crazy story.
Wow.
But I started my own content agency when I was 14 years old. I was in high school, grade 9 specifically. And I just knew it's what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to improve businesses, give people value through this art form that I had found and honestly fallen in love with. And it was really cool as a young person. The deeper part of my story is I had a really difficult time in school, learning disabilities, ADHD, processing disorders, a few things that made school challenging for me. So to find something at a young age that I felt I was like, whoa, I'm excelling at. And more importantly, adults are coming to me asking for the value. I was like, this is such a cool exchange. And I just fell in love with it. So I started the content agency when I was 14. It was mainly video focused actually at the time, started to adapt and get some photo stuff going. And that took me on a journey that brings me basically today. But I did 20 countries before I was 20 years old, shooting for brands, Ford, Yeti, Uber. I got a list of them right here. Where'd they go? Tab. Ford, Yeti, Uber, Home Hardware, Leatherman, which is awesome, Hydro Flask, Team LTD, Eureka, I can just keep going on and on and on, on and on and on. So many brands that I shot, both large size, small size, over the span of the last decade of getting to work with brands. And it's been really cool. But the thing that I really loved was as I started to help brands with content, I realized there was a lot of not just content problems, but there was also a lot of distribution problems. Oh, they don't know how to actually manage the content properly. So my little small content agency started to develop into more of a broad agency as I was helping people with content distribution. So like social media management, I was helping them with social strategy. I was helping them get into web design stuff and making sure their web presence was there. And through all of that, I learned that brand is kind of the key thing that ties all that together. So in 2019, I built a process called brand therapy, where we actually take a brand and we go, just like therapy, it's going to get worse before it gets better. But what do we need to do to disassemble, this brand as it is, and then rebuild it for what the future of your organization, future of your business, future of the mission you're trying to create needs to have? What brand is that? So, we basically do full visual overhauls, and then we do specific, this is where it's really fun, the narrative stuff. So what's all the communication? What are the taglines? What are the things that really do make a brand and personify it? And so, today I help Christy with all of that stuff. I mainly do all the video. We still shoot photo and video campaigns together. And then she helps me. We do everything together. She helps me on the brand side as we do brand consulting and brand strategy for different organizations all over the place. So that's a little update on us and kind of the, I don't know what you want to call it, the
context of what
the context of where we're pulling everything you'll ever hear on the podcast from is from running six-figure, wedding business, a six-figure brand agency. And then they both kind of evolved into different six-figure businesses and just all the things we've learned through that. And then the cool part is we've helped since 2019. So 5 years, we've helped tons of people, thousands of you guys on the podcast, but intimately, we've gotten help over 330 people build a great six-figure foundation for their business. And we've seen a lot of those people end up even making multiple six figures a year, which is awesome. So that's also where a lot of the lessons and stuff comes from, is from all of that experience, both in our own businesses and then all the businesses we get to help people create. So if you're new to the podcast, hopefully that's helpful. If you're new to the podcast or you've been here for a while, hopefully it's just a good refresher. Hopefully it makes you guys feel like you know us a little bit better, because that would be cool. We'd love to get to know you guys better. So connect with us on Instagram, hit us up, shoot us a DM. We'd love to get to know who's listening to the show.
And if listening to that, you go, oh man, these people must just have it all figured out, and they must, whenever they pitch, it's always a yes. And whenever they do something, it's always a yes. And they just must have golden footprints going behind them on every single thing they do. I want to burst that bubble today as well and go, that's absolutely not true, which is why today's episode is actually on how to respond to a no or a not yet when you either pitch a client or when you've got an inquiry and you respond to their pricing and they go, nah. You basically, how to respond when that happens. Because again,
That would never happen to you, though, right?
Would never happen.
That didn't happen to you last week.
That definitely didn't
and
happen
probably the week
last
before,
week.
and last month too, and me last month.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The reality is, it happens a lot. If you're going to put yourself in the game, you're going to grab the bat and have some at bats. You're going to swing and you're going to miss sometimes. And a miss isn't a negative thing.
No.
And specifically the one we're talking about today, it's not a negative thing at all.
No.
You'll actually hear as Christy tells the story, it's much more of a timing thing. And that's what a lot of it is. Like, people say to me all the time, like, man, well, I just get nervous about pitching because I pitched 3 brands and, one never responded. One got back and said, we're not interested, just very point blank. And the other one said, hey, this is cool, but it's not the right time. So I got 3 no's. Like, no, you didn't. You just got one person that hasn't yet responded to you, which could be a yes. You got one person that said no, that you could potentially turn into a yes one day. And then you got one person that said it's not the right time. That's not a no at all. And for a lot of the no's that the creative industry gets, it's actually more often than not, it's not the right time than it is a hard no. And so how we deal with things when it is a no and or vice versa, it's not the right time is super important because how we deal with no's determines what our future yeses look like as we pitch as creatives. So it's really important that you approach a no or a ghost or a, hey, not right now. You approach it with a little bit of strategy. And so we're going to talk about that today and talk about just an example from Christy literally this past week.
Yeah. So if you think, I just want to say, first of all, when it comes to this, when you do get a no or a not yet, it will always kind of feel like a sucker punch. Like, you're always invested when you're pitching into something. You're always putting yourself out there. So no matter how long you've been in business, like, I've been in this for a long time. Joey's been in this for a long time. We feel super confident in what we do and the results we deliver to people. When you get a no or not yet, it still kind of sucks. Like, 100%. I just want to say that never goes away. And that kind of discouragement. So if you're like, I just keep getting no's or whatever, maybe I should just quit. Maybe this feeling just means it's not for me. I just want to say that's not true. I tend to think that no's are actually the beginning of a relationship. That not yet is a beginning of the relationship. And so that's how I kind of approached this one that I had this last week. So I had a brand super excited about, really have wanted to work with them for a long time. Finally gathered up courage, all that stuff, got all my ducks in a row, sent them an awesome pitch. And it was really solid. Like, I will say it was a very solid pitch, and I sent it over. And then I got a response back that was like, hey, like, love your work so much. This is actually a really great idea. However, we just already have all of our projects, kind of booked out for this season, but like, we would love to chat about this in the future. Now I read that and instantly it's like, oh, bummer. But then it's also like, oh, this is just the beginning of the relationship, right? Like, I really respect them. It seems like they respect me. Like, I think step 1 is to not read into no's. Step 1 is not to go, they hate me, they don't like my work, they never want to work with me, whatever that is. Unless they actually write that out.
Yeah.
See it as it is. In that, guys, as people are running businesses, it is hard to align the stars of they have the time, the budget, the availability, and you pitch them at that exact moment, right? You should almost expect a not yet when you pitch the first time. It's the beginning of the relationship. So I got that response. I initially was like, bummer. But how can I respond in a way that's not just like the message or don't even respond to them at all? That's the worst thing you can do. If someone says you a no or not and you don't respond, then that's the end of the relationship, right? Which is such a bummer. So first things first, should we just roll through it?
Yeah, well, a couple of things. The first thing that I want to point out that you did well was this is something that our friend Bob says. It's brilliant. He says, we can all have bad days or bad moments, just don't pitch your tent. Yeah. So the first thing was you were like, bummer. Like, I was so excited about that idea and that pitch, but you were like, great. Like, this is a totally great response. It's awesome that we're even engaging back and forth. I'm not going to pitch my tent in discouragement. I'm going to respond well.
Yeah.
So step number 1 is you can be sad that your initial pitch didn't necessarily get approved. Just don't pitch your tent.
Yeah.
Don't set up camp and stay in that discouragement for a couple of days. Just don't pitch your tent. Move on, and we're going to talk about how you move on. Yeah. Second thing I think you did well, and then I want you to take it, was Christy responded immediately. You responded really quick.
Yeah.
And how you respond is partially what you say, but the method in which you respond, which is timing and tone, all of those things are so, so important. So if you do get a no, it is so crucial, I think, that you follow up and you respond very, very efficiently, as it's out of your respect for yourself It's out of respect for them and thanking them for their response. So step number one, don't pitch your 10 out of discouragement. Step number two, respond with effectiveness. It's gotta be in the, like, I think 24 hours is too long. Like, if you can respond in the same hour, do it every time.
Yeah. Make sure your response is crafted well. But
Yeah,
yes, respond.
yeah.
Kind of immediately, which
Yep.
is good. Because again, no one likes to send no emails. So to be able to respond positively and to like continue the relationship, I think does, help the relationship move forward. So my goal in pitching is not even necessarily, it's to land a deal, of course, but it's also to develop a relationship, which means I want to continue to develop this relationship to serve them, right? Like I'm excited about their brand. I'm excited about what I can offer. And so I'm not just going to stop with like the first pitch and then just go, bummer. Okay, I'll never talk to them again, right? So it's like, okay, let's move into how to respond well. And we'll kind of break up what I said in a couple little different ways. So the first thing that I like to respond, instead of being like, bummer, or like make them feel bad, because ultimately it's probably not even up to the person that's responding to you. So I like to just respond with gratitude. Like, thank you so much for your response. Like, there are so many times you'll get ghosted. And so if someone does take the time to respond to you, especially the time where they nicely respond to you, I always like to start with gratitude. Hey, thank you so much for your response. Really appreciate your time. Starting off on that positive note is going to, first of all, help the relationship so much more, but then also just express that you're a nice person to work with, right? Even when you don't get what you want, you're still a nice person to work with, which is truly, I think, who you are as a person as you're working with brands is the most important thing ever. But yeah, respond with thankfulness. And then I like to jump into, we were talking about this, jumping into, when I talked about the alignment of, hey, when they have need, when they have budget, when they have timing, and then when you reach out, don't always align. Try to find that alignment time. So start off with gratitude, send them a huge thanks. But then secondly, ask if they say, you know what, it's just not the right timing. Reach back out and say, hey, when would be a really great time to talk to you guys about when you're planning these things? If they're saying, hey, we'd love to work together in the future, you could say, hey, I would love to work with you guys. That would be awesome. When do you have, what time of year or, what month or what part of the month do you plan out your content schedule? I'd love to reach out back then when it's more contextualized to what you guys are doing, right? Something like that.
Yeah, totally. I think it's important. And you had said that. So her response, which was, we actually were probably assuming this was going to be the case when you pitched. You had this in your head. Her response was, this is awesome. It's a no right now because at the moment, a lot of our stuff is already planned out for the year. So your first thing you said was, thank you so much for thank you so much for your response. And totally, this is a key word. I assumed you guys probably had everything mapped out, but I just wanted to check.
Yes.
What you're doing here is you're saying, hey, I understand how your business model works. I understand that you guys were probably already planned out. I wanted to pitch you anyways, make sure I took a swing at it because I want to give you guys some value. But I assumed that would be the case. So thanks so much for responding. So again, it's gratitude. It's creating some type of like common understanding that, I understand. The worst thing you can do is go back at somebody who gives you a reason for their no and try and like unwind their reasoning and change it. So like, let's say they said, oh, well, we typically already planned out we're a little bit booked because we already planned out everything for the year. As she said, the worst thing you could have said was, well, you should be more open to flexibility. And it's like, it's a horrible response, right? It's like, you want to make sure that you are aligned with their reasoning because it's great reasoning. Of course, they're already planned out. It's a huge brand, right? So you were pitching something that was kind of like sneaking something in that could have been really cool. So you're saying, oh, it totally makes sense. Your budget and your timelines, everything's already taken up. We assumed that. So I think creating, again, saying thank you and then creating some type of like common understanding where you're aligned on their reasoning, I think that goes a long way, right?
Totally.
No one ever wants to have to deliver a no and then hear somebody try and like, well, you shouldn't have given me a no for this reason, this reason. It's like, little creative, you don't know how this brand works. So create some common understanding of like, I totally get why you're saying no, which is what you did. And then you follow it up. You didn't just say, okay, that's fine. You don't have time right now. You then followed it up by saying, I get that you guys are already booked out. I assumed that. When would be a great time for me to reach back out and rekindle this conversation? That's more probably based around a time when you guys are planning for future projects, which is a really smart thing to say, right?
And they might respond with that or not, but at least you're asking so that you know when to reach back out, because then you go, well, when do I follow up, right? Like, when do they say they want to work with me, when do I do that? So that will help solve that lingering question. Then you can go fork in the road, okay? You can then go and end the response. That's kind of a like, hey, look forward to chatting again. Would love to work with you guys soon. After you ask about when to reach back out, and you can kind of just leave it at that. Or if you're like, I actually want to continue this relationship and to develop this relationship in a deeper way, even though they can't work with my core offer right now, we can at least do something else. And so this is where I go, it's super important to make yourself flexible in the industry if you are trying to develop a relationship with somebody. So people, if there's someone you really want to work with, like for instance, me with this brand, I would love to work with them. I think they're awesome. I really love their team. I kind of know them. They're amazing. So to me, I'm like, oh, I really want to work with them. So I was like, you know what? What is something that may stop them from working with me in the future? The fact that they've never worked with me, right? So these are big budget campaigns. These are big things that are happening. If they don't have my work with their product, that's going to be a hard sell on their side. Because what happens...
just giving the project to somebody they've already worked with, right?
Exactly. Someone that they already worked with. And so I'm just like, man, if I can do something for them, even if it's for free or super cheap, that could be a really great option. So for me, I was like, hey, I'll read you what I said. I said, I'd love to comp you guys a free shoot this summer so you could have some of my examples. Sorry, I'll just restart that sentence again. I'd love to comp you guys a free shoot this summer so you could have some examples of my work with your products, as I'm sure that might be helpful for future reference for shoots. If that's something brand would be interested in, we can execute it super quick. So, and then I go into a 3-step thing. But with that, I'm like...
Which is genius, giving the steps, by the way.
Well, thank you. I think that might have been your idea. But I want to offer, like, if you are someone that's like, I can never do anything for free, like, I have to stand my ground as a worth as a creative, I'm just going to say, good luck being in the industry for that long. Like, if you want to work with somebody, sometimes you have to put skin in the game, right? Because right now, all I'm doing is asking for something when I'm pitching them. Obviously, I'm giving them value, all that kind of stuff. But if I'm not willing to actually like put some skin in the game, maybe offer, prove something, all of that kind of stuff, give them the tools to be able to, when they're sitting around in a boardroom, go, hey, here's some images of this chick that shot some stuff for us. Do we want to utilize her for the next campaign? That's worth the risk. That's worth the time investment than it is to just be like, no, I refuse to do anything for free ever. So to me, I feel super great. I'd be stoked to do something for them, even just for free. Like, I think it would be a great experience, and I think it helps develop the relationship.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Comp a free shoot or do a test shoot, but make sure it's not your core offer. Make sure you're not just giving what you pitched for free, right? You don't want to develop that type of reputation. However, if you want to offer like, hey, I'll do something smaller for free so that we can, again, test this out, I think that's a great thing. So then the steps thing, Joy, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, well, anytime you pitch another idea, this should be in your original pitch, or if you're pitching them like a side thing, like, hey, I know it's not going to work for the big, idea I had right now, but I would love to work with you guys. I would love to prove that my work is something you guys should be invested in because I get it's really good with your product. Here's a little, side project I'd love to do for free. You always got to make sure they then understand how to take action on that. So you said here, step 1. So you said we could execute it super quick. Step 1 would be pick a couple outfits you guys would like to push in this location. Then she sent to the location below that she wants to shoot it in. Step 2, if you have a brand brief or product, do's and don'ts, I'd love to see it to make sure I nail it.
I can't tell you how important this step is. Too many people just go, hey, send me some free product and I'll just shoot it.
And
then you shoot it completely wrong. And you guys, especially larger brands, it has to be so dialed to exactly what they need. And if it's angled improperly, they won't use it.
Or if the product is just slightly not being used properly, it can't be used, right?
It cannot be used.
So every big brand has one. So step 1, pick a couple outfits you guys would think would match this location. Step 2, send me your brand brief. Step 3, I'll send you my address and we can execute everything from there. I got it from there.
And I want to say I got it from there because I'm like, you don't want to say, hey, we're going to jump on this long call and you're going to have to talk to me a ton. A lot of times people are also saying no because they're like, I don't have the time, right? So if you can make this, hey, I can execute this completely independently. I just need these 3 things and I will just send you the images. That's a way easier yes. How do you make an easy yes in your response so that it's not just another no, right?
Totally. So this is a great response. You did a great job responding to this. You've done this before with other brands as well. I've had to do this. We've got, it's 2 decades of experience of client communication like this, getting no's. You got a lot of no's in the wedding industry and then in the brand industry as you started to take on brands. I've been for a decade now already getting those in the brand industry. And so again, how you guys respond to no's dictates what your yeses look like in the future. So anything else you want to say on this topic?
No, I think I would just say if you're offering, whether it's like a portion of your core offer and you're charging for is for free, whatever, still include at the very end. Like, and if not, no worries. Would love to chat again soon, right? Like, don't make them feel like they have to take your free offer or your paid offer or whatever. Again,
would you want to read your?
Yeah, I'll just say, so I list the 3 steps and then I just say, if you don't want to take me up on this, no problem at all. Looking forward to staying in touch. Also, here's my cell phone if that's easier. So I literally give them like, hey, here's how to contact me exactly. So just end
easy, kind, sweet.
Yeah, I think just like your responses should just be from your viewpoint, from your mindset, just the beginning of the relationship. How do you want to get off on the right foot? How do you want to get off serving them the best that they can, being the most kind, like just be a great person to work with. And that will go such a long way. And a good response to a no, that person most likely will want to fight for you in the future than the person that either they ghost or they never talk to again or kind of sends a biting response back. So just make sure you always view this from like, hey, this is the first step in the relationship. How do I make this a win for the both of us, even though it's a no or a not yet? And ultimately, don't get discouraged. This is so normal to have this happen when you're putting yourself out there, pitching. So you guys, as much as you're going to get yeses when you craft awesome pitches, you're also going to get no's and not yet. So don't let it discourage you.
Don't let it discourage you. So guys, hopefully this episode was so helpful for you. If it was, screenshot it, throw it up in your Instagram story, tag Creative Rise. We'd love to obviously see that it was helpful. And 2, we'd love to connect with you there. It's a great way for your friends to hear about the show, hear about how they can learn how to navigate no's in a better way as well. But we got a bunch of free resources for you. If you have not ever gotten anything for free from us, we'd love to give you some free stuff. There's a free course, a couple other free products and stuff in the description of the show if you want to click on some of those links. And yeah, hopefully this episode was just full of value and those links are full of value. Subscribe to the show. Leave us a 5-star written review if you would be so kind. It's a great way for the show to grow. That's how the algorithms work in the podcast world. Yeah. Let's rock. Going into summertime, coming into the 80s, 180 episodes. We're coming up to that. So if you have anything you'd also want us to do an episode on that is specific to your problem in your business, let us know. Shoot us a DM. We'd love to chat with you about that and eventually maybe do an episode on it that could help you. So hopefully this has just been great from Joey and from Christy and the rest of the team that makes this whole podcast work here at Creative Rise. We're grateful for you guys. Hopefully this is very helpful. We'll see you next week.